Oh, Bosch with a kick return. He's running it. Inside ball to Williams. There we go. What speed. And the step inside. Oh, beautiful stuff. Rappi. Easter weekend, Champions Cup. My kid had a fever. Let's go. The Friday game this week was a battle of the hashtag with Leinster hosting Leicester in Dublin. You already know what happened, don't you? I don't need to update anyone on this game. The Tigers ran onto that pitch and looked like they were asked to catch marlin with their bare hands. You could hear the swish noises every time Ringrose or O'Brien flew through a massive gap in the defence on their way to a score. Besides all the island-esque moves and players, the thing that stood out for me the most was how slow that Tigers backline looked. Guys like Stewart and Brown were turning like tanks, and only Anthony Watson looked like he could define acceleration if you asked him to. It really wasn't close. Leinster move on to the semis and will host Toulouse in what might be the biggest club game in the world right now. Seriously, this is like PSG versus Bayern level stuff. Does that track? The last time I followed football, Torres was stealing a living at Chelsea. The first match on Saturday was Toulouse hosting the Sharks, and unfortunately it turned into the second one-sided drubbing of the weekend. Unlike game 1, the Sharks did actually put up a fight. They were playing at a pace that Toulouse couldn't keep up with, and their set piece was dominant. This is Toulouse though. They have a player that could be a model, a player that might be a mutant, and a player whose mom might have changed too many cat litter boxes when she was pregnant. They used this A-team of stars to reel in the Sharks and then smash them to bits by the end of the game. Their flair, power and bigger reserves of energy carried them to a great victory in a pretty decent game, despite the score. The semi-final pitting Toulouse's majesty against Leinster's rhythm is a must-watch. Game 3 of the weekend saw the Exeter Chiefs host the Stormers after all their travel troubles. This was our third one-sided battering of the weekend. I didn't watch this match live, so I can't really say where the Stormers went wrong, but from the highlights it looks like they let the Chiefs score a whole lot more points than themselves. Most analysts will tell you that if you score less points than the opposition, you will lose 99% of the time. Let me know down below if you agree with him. And that ended any SAFA involvement in the Champions Cup. But the optimist in me feels like we made a pretty good impression. Exeter now have the little matter of travelling to reigning champions La Rochelle for the semi-final. The last game of the quarters involved the Saracens trying to beat said La Rochelle at home. This was not as one-sided as all the other matches, if you look at it as a 15 versus 15 game. What actually happened was Levani Botia beat the visitors by himself, and his teammates were only there for insurance reasons. Maybe the ref was just a little too lenient with a clear release rule, or maybe the Saracens cleaners were just too slow to get to the breakdown. Whatever it was, it led to 4 turnovers for Botia alone and a good home win to head into the semi-finals. So now La Rochelle will host the Chiefs in a couple of weeks to see if they get to defend their title in the final. And with those results, the Champions Cup morphs back into the European Champions Cup. As SAFAs, I think we can be proud of our first foray into the big comp, but obvious logistical and probably cost issues remain. I'm sure all parties involved are looking for better ways to mesh this competition with all the domestic competitions. If the scheduling of travel and rest periods can be improved, I'm hoping we can get 4 tight quarterfinals instead of 3 drubbings and a funeral. In the meantime, we all get to enjoy the final few games between the 2 French giants, the English Brawlers and the literal Irish national side. The Challenge Cup also morphed back into the European Challenge Cup this past weekend, but it's still just a knife fight behind a quick spar dumpster. The Lions were the last SAFA side to bow out, but at least I still have the Benetton Lions that I can cheer on. They will be visiting Toulon in their semi-final, and the Scarlets will be hosting Glasgow in the other semi-final. If you find any family members enjoying this competition, call a priest and start looking for drugs in their stuff. That's some good old-fashioned news. There was a red card in the Super Rugby match between the Reds and the Brumbies this past weekend. What makes it interesting is that it was the first instance I've ever seen of it being a yellow card first. While the offending player was sat twirling his mustache on the naughty chair, a TMO reviewed the incident and upgraded it to a red card. I think this was a swell way to handle the whole process. The game got going again, and the naughty player got his comeuppance without us, the audience, having to watch slow-mo footage of the victim getting his brain pulverized for 3 minutes on end. World Rugby seems to agree, and they said that they like the idea of the whole process going off field so that the game can carry on. We'll see if they bring it in before the World Cup, with talks of testing it out in the Rugby Championship. I don't really see an issue with them bringing it in. It happens so rarely that it can't really have affected conditioning that much. I'm all for making the game quicker in sensible ways. What else? There's been a lot of transfer news with some English and Welsh clubs trying to lighten their payrolls. Nemani Nandolo announced his retirement. Wingers the world over breathed a sigh of relief at that news. Nigel Owens rebuffed the Springboks advances. He says he's got other work to do and he's trying to start a family in the next few months. Congrats to him and his hubby. I hope his kids never come home with a fever on a Friday. It's nightmarish. And the nightmare of this rugby update ends here. I will see you all next week after the Lions have shown everyone how to beat Leinster. Jeez, bye.